right and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
On today's episode, we look back at last weekend's game against Leyton Orient, where United had to settle for another home draw, and look ahead to this weekend's trip over to the northeast coast to renew pleasantries with the Monkey Hangers. A little bit short on the intro this week, I think, Dan. I got it right last couple of weeks. We didn't quite get it right this time, did I? There you go. How's it going, mate?
Not bad.
But yeah, still unbeaten, I suppose. That's one way to look at things, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very glass half full, half empty at the moment, isn't it?
It's one of those ones. It's not a terrible start to the season, but it's not a particularly exciting one either.
The next couple of games will sort of decide whether it's good or bad, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's get straight into it, Dan, because you've got quite a bit to fit in. So first up, the competition. Obviously, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the fact that we finally had an answer in our competition, so to speak, and Joe Riley scored the first goal of the season. And as a result, we've got 5 contenders for the pair of Sock Council Walling socks to give away. So I'm going to press the little button here. I've numbered them 1 to 5 here. I've got Alex McAllister, Kyle from Twitter, Lee Beattie, Martin Sewell and Will Clark. So one of you guys is going to win in alphabetical order, basically, those numbers. So here we go. I'm going to generate a random number here. The number that's come through is number 4. So Martin Sewell, you've won a pair of socks. Congratulations, Martin. We'll be in contact shortly to get your socks over to you. So there you go. News. There's not really much news this week, is there, Dan, really? But we'll just do a little quick update on a young man who's continuing to excel, isn't he, in a non-league level? Young Mr. Sam Fishburn.
Feed the fish and he will score.
Incredible. I don't think anyone could have guessed he would have done this well in his loan spell, could they? He's obviously gone out on loan to Lancaster City until January. That was 10 days ago. Since then, he's scored 6 goals in 3 games, basically. Just cannot stop scoring. That included a hat-trick against Grantham Town. And if you've not seen it, go and see his first goal. It's an absolute stunner, isn't it, Dan? Wonderful touch.
I've said all pre-season that he should play for us, and I'm being proven right. I know people will say, "Oh, it's a low level." The lad scores goals. End of.
I am going to sort of temper that and say I kind of agree with the idea that it is a lower level, and I know there's a lot of people saying, "Get him back, get in the team." I still don't think he's quite there yet. I think that you've got to give him a bit of time, and for me, the good thing here is he's gone on loan till January. I don't think we can recall him, can we, Dan? Because I think it's one of the 6-month half-season loans, and I don't think you can recall players like that. It's sometimes different with the non-league ones, but I don't think we can. So he's gone there. He'll be back in January potentially. The question is, what do you do then? Do you then send him out on loan to a higher level, or do you potentially put him in the team? If he comes back and scored 20 goals, you probably have him on the bench coming on, don't you? And work him into the team as much as you can.
Which then makes people question why we took the Aston Villa lad.
It massively depends on how the Aston Villa lad does, though, doesn't it? Because he might turn out to be a real star, and I do think Young's got a bit of potential there. There's a bit of a Joe Garner about him for me, but there you go. So yeah, well done, Sam. Having a really good time out at Lancaster City. It'd be interesting to see if a couple of the other lads go out, maybe potentially. I do wonder if getting Josh Dixon out on loan and getting some games would be a good idea, because he's not really getting in the matchday squad at the moment. The Charters ahead of him, so get him out somewhere, even if it is the same level as Fishburn, somewhere like Lancaster. Same with Gabriel Breeze. Get him out on loan somewhere, get him some game time. Obviously keep Simons maybe, because you'd need a third choice keeper, wouldn't you? But yeah.
Yeah, but you can do them where they can play games and they can still come back if need be, can't you?
Yeah, you can always do the ones where after the transfer deadline day, you can do it where you just basically get them back in, don't you? So there you go. Right. Well, let's get on to the match review bit then, Dan. So looking back at last weekend's, it seems ages ago now, doesn't it? Because we haven't had a midweek game. It's strange, isn't it? It doesn't feel like it was only on Saturday, but yeah. So United won, Leyton Orient won. Another home game, another 1-1 draw for the Blues. This time probably against a stronger side. I think one of the stronger sides we've faced so far this season. But it's a game where you feel like Orient were there for the taking in the first half, weren't they? They didn't look a great side until the break.
Yeah, well, it was the classic game of 2 halves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
First half, we were by far the better team. then they made their changes second half and were by far the better team in the second half. So
yeah, because it's interesting. Obviously, we talked with the guys from the Lowdown podcast last week, and they were saying how they're surprised that they were playing some nice football under Jacket and not necessarily going direct. But actually, they were struggling first half when they were trying to do that because we were in their faces and causing problems. It's only when they went direct at half time that they looked to fret, didn't they?
yeah, I mean how the left back stayed on at half time. It was pretty obvious they were going to sub him after the first half. And that was part of the moves that Jaden Sweeney, was it he was called?
Yeah, he's definitely a contender for the Jude Sterling Award, isn't he? Because he was, I mean, early in the season to be giving it a shout for that, but my God, he was awful, wasn't he? He could not cope with, because it was, I'm trying to think, first half it would have been Dickinson down that side, wasn't it? And I think he was really struggling with him and Tanner. Tanner was overlapping a lot and causing a few problems, and Abrahams was also pulling onto him occasionally as well, wasn't he? And beating him to the ball. And yeah, there was a couple, I think there was 2 or 3, wasn't there, afterwards? But I think there was one was a blatant handball the referee missed, but then there was a couple other ones where he gave away silly fouls, and he got his last warning at that point, to be fair. I don't think he actually gave away another foul after that, so really frustrating one, that one, isn't it? But Bobby Madley, Premier League referee, he actually handed out 5 bookings to Orient's game. I didn't realise we didn't get a single booking until I was putting the stats together for the game, so yeah, it was an interesting one. If Orient got one more booking, they would have got £1,000 fine, actually, wouldn't they? That's the result, 6 bookings. So yeah, started quite strongly this game. Abrahams winning the penalty after 8 minutes and converting. Harsh decision, do you think? I mean, I watched this back, and actually, having seen it again on the telly with the view from the other side, because we're both on the main stand side, aren't we? I don't think it was as harsh a decision as people made it out to be.
I was up in B stand, and straight away I thought penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was just the height angle or what, but at the end of the day, it's hit his hand, and that's the rule now. So,
yeah, it's one of those ones that the angle I saw it from the paddock, it looked to me like his hand was down by his side and he just caught it. But actually, when you watch the TV replay, his hand's nearly at his head height, so he's not really got any excuse for it, to be honest. And really good penalty there from Abrahams. Got to say that took it really well.
Yeah, it shows that all these stuttering run-ups are a load of rubbish. I'm a big fan of just putting your laces through it and you know, rattling it in. And if the keeper saves it, you've done nothing wrong, have you? You know. Well,
I think it's Luke Moore on the Football Ramble podcast always says this. He says he doesn't get why players do those stuttering run-ups, because even if you think, it's part of a technique, I think you're just making it more difficult for yourself. You already got the advantage. Was it 70% of penalties are scored or something like that? Why make it more difficult and put more variables in there? Just step up there and hit the ball. That's the main thing you do. But yeah, really good penalty from Tristan. Once again, we played some nice stuff down, but we weren't really very ruthless, were we?
No, we're not clicking in the final third, I think it's fair to say. You know, I mean, obviously we needed the penalty to score. I don't think it's through lack of effort. It's just slightly square pegs in round holes a little bit. Alexandra seems a bit lost at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I put this as a point in. I think you've mentioned it a couple of times to me as well. We need to have a look at that front three, don't we? I don't think that front three is going to win you promotion. I don't think we can carry on much longer playing it. They're 3 decent footballers on their own, Dickinson, Abrahams and Alessandra. But they don't work as a three. They just don't. They're very good technical, aren't they?
They're being shoehorned into a system, and it's not producing the goods, basically.
No, it just doesn't suit them, does it, at the moment? And
yeah, I
mean, Abrahams, he's got 2 and 4, but does he look like a goal scorer to you? I don't think he does. I think I just feel like he's a hard worker, and you can see he's fairly decent linking play. And I imagine when you've got someone maybe playing through balls, he might excel from that. But he's not bursting a gut to get in the box when Dickinson gets the ball out wide, for instance, is he? He's not really looking for those front post runs and things like that. And that's difficult, because Dickinson's the kind of player who likes to get the ball in the box. And I saw a few people criticising his crossing at the weekend. But actually, I don't think he was that... I think his problem was he was looking up often. There was no one in the box room.
I think Dickinson's more suited to a bog standard 4-4-2 on the left of the midfield.
Yeah, I think he probably is, to be fair. And I think if you're going to play him, actually, I'd probably rather see him play on the right of a front three, because you can cut inside and have shots that way. I think that's probably the best way you're going to see the best of him. I just didn't think it worked, and Alessandro was okay first half, but once again he had those moments where he holds onto the ball far too long and he slows the play down too much for us. And we were big fans of him last season. We're not here, people who just can have a go at him, but it just isn't working at the moment with him in the team, is it?
Like I've said, I think now Clough's had a few minutes. I think the natural progression will be Clough will start games and Alessandro will come on for him. And that is when hopefully we'll be like 2-0 up or whatever. And Alessandro slowing it down and, just nullifying it would be good in those circumstances. But
yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll touch on whether, how Clough comes into the team when we do the preview section. But obviously he came in this game as a sub, but it just felt to me like he was thrown in for the sake of it. It didn't feel like there was any sort of game plan as to how he was going to fit into the team, was it? He looked a little bit lost, didn't he, in this game? Yeah, it didn't really work with him coming in. You mentioned before, Dan, obviously the big turning point at half-time was when they made the subs and brought Harry Smith on, who, he's a big 6'5" lad, a bit of a nuisance up top. Albeit I think actually McDonald and Whelan dealt with him fairly well. I don't think he was that much of a threat. But I actually think the big turning point came when Mellish came off, because we just seemed to lose control of the midfield at that point.
Yeah, second half, it was quite annoying, I thought, because, we made our subs and they didn't really change anything.
No.
There was no sort of tangible benefit for making them, which, Clough did all right when he came on, but, there was...
Someone like Toure, you only give him 2 minutes at the end. It's not enough time for him to get into the game.
Well,
the feel of the game. And
they need 5 minutes to warm up, sort of thing.
Yeah, at the very least, you bring him on with 10 minutes to go. And the thing is, once he actually got a little bit warmed up at the very end of injury time, he won a free kick by causing problems and going at the fullback. So it's one of those ones you get him on a bit sooner and let him have an actual go. And that's the kind of player I think we're missing at the moment, a player who will run at the defence and try and create something in that way rather than... And I know Dickinson does like to run at the fullback and that, but like we said, when he does it, there was no one in the box for him to get there, whereas Toure tends to try and get into the box and then play off his pass, doesn't he? And that's an advantage there. But yeah, for me, I think last couple of games we've taken Mellish off in these games and we lose a little bit in midfield now because he's a nuisance and he gets about, doesn't he? And he's becoming a bit more of a player than just a goal scorer to the team.
Yeah. I mean, the lad doesn't stop running, and I think you could probably safely say that Dickinson looked absolutely blown out his backside after about 65, 70 minutes. So there was a bit of... Yeah,
I mean, Dickinson did do a lot of running as well, to be fair. He was
a lot.
So it was a tough one, wasn't it? It's one of those games that I look at it, and actually looking at the stats, a point's probably a fair result. But I feel in that first half, they really were there for the taking. And I think maybe if you had I'm not necessarily saying Toure, but a winger who's going to have a bit more of a go at fullback on, we might well have gone in 2 or 3 up at half time, I think, in that game. But yeah, Orient look a decent enough team. I think they're lacking a bit of firepower as well, similar to us, aren't they? Really good technical players in there, but not really got a goal scorer at the moment, I think, is the way I'd look at them.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it for the Orient game, isn't it? Not really a huge amount else to say in it, really. It was one of those games where you feel like maybe 2 points dropped, although you'll take an unbeaten record, won't you, at this point?
Yeah. Saturday is a big one. The 3 points would be very welcome, and it would maybe just not stop the twining, because we're Carlisle fans, will always twine, but just sort of, all right, we may be taking a couple of games to click, but... And then obviously we've got Salford the week after up here, who have started terribly. So I think if we get at least 4 points from the 2 games, I'd be happy.
Well, I mean, if you win next weekend, this weekend's game even, that's 3 points. That's 9 points after 5 games. It's not a bad return, is it? Really?
No, not
at all.
Season. Not at all.
Not a bad return at all. Right, okay then, Dan. Let's take a short break, and we'll be back in a minute just to preview the Hartlepool game. So we'll be back in just a sec.
Hi, this is George Tanner. You are listening to the Brunton Bugle.
And we're back for part 2. As ever, for this season, obviously, our second half of the show sponsor is the Carl United Supporters Club London Branch. The London Branch is open to all Carl United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course, every part of London and the South East, and even members up in Cumbria. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events and supporters games and doing fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section of this season 2. You can find out more about the London Branch at their website, carlislelondonbranch.org. Okay, so first up in the second half, part of the preview section, as ever, we've got an opposition fan view. We were able to catch up with the guys from the Hartlepool United, I think it's HUFC chat podcast, because unfortunately they weren't available. We've managed to get one of their fans on Twitter to have a chat with us. His name's Jordan Richardson. He's he's very kindly given up his time to talk to us about how Pools are getting on this season and whether he sees us as a rival of any sort. So here's the chat I had with Jordan. After 4 seasons of being stuck in the National League, how pleased are you to finally be back in the EFL? Because I know as a Carlisle fan, obviously, we did it about 18 years ago, and the novelty can wear off quite quickly, can't it, over the new grounds at that level? Yeah,
to be honest, so if I go back to when we first got relegated, I remember going into the first game against Dover, and we were a bit above ourselves thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing, we're going to beat every team 4-0 every single week, and we soon came back down to earth. I think we lost that game 1-0, and we didn't register our first win until the end of August when we lost to when we beat Guiseley. Yeah. And since then, it's probably been a similar story. We never really challenged until Dave Challinor came in, and it was a real slog. So being back in the league, obviously you've got to look at the financial boost of being in the EFL. Yeah. I know there's a lot of money within the likes of Stockport, Chesterfield, Wrexham and Notts County, but
tell us about it.
I think for funding within that league, I think you only have to look at the situation with COVID when the season got curtailed and there was no relegation last year. The funding's absolutely appalling. So as I say, it was a real slog, really difficult to get out of, and do you know what? Until we had Challinor appointed as manager, we had no hope really. We really needed somebody who knew the league, and it's a decision that paid off really. So as I say, relief more than anything. We can look forward now as a football club rather than looking over our shoulders.
You've already touched there on David Challinor. What a difference he's made to you, because prior to him coming in, you'd had to be 12th place finish was the best you'd had, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it would have been around mid-table.
Yeah, it's obviously been low mid-table for most of the time in the National League, and he's come in and over, obviously, see half a season, his first season, and then into last season. He's done an incredible job, hasn't he? I mean, 4th place finish, especially as you mentioned, amongst all those teams that are throwing money about for fun with a much lower budget than a lot of them. What a great job he's done. Absolutely,
yeah. I think he's criminally underrated from everyone outside of Pools. As you got to look at last season, we had a lower a mid-table to lower league budget, and he's got us promoted through the playoffs. To be honest, as I say, we had no hope until he came in. The biggest thing for me is the home form. He's turned the Vic into a fortress, with and without fans. And it's been noticeable because even going into the years before we got relegated, our home form wasn't too good. Alongside that, and again, you got looking at the budget. It's all right having a big budget to spend in the National League, but the recruitment has got to be good, and his has been remarkable. To be honest, some of the players that he brought in last season, the likes of Jamie Sterry, Luke Armstrong on loan, even pulling David Ferguson from the National League North at York, and just recruitment is key at that level. He's been amazing for us. He's, as I say, I think he's got a big future in football management. It wouldn't surprise me to see him moving to League One, even perhaps the Championship in years to come. He can do no wrong in my eyes. I'm a huge fan of him. His philosophy, the way he goes about his business, he's really detailed. He analyses everything, and it's really important that we get him tied down to a new contract sooner rather than later, because there'll be clubs looking at him. If the longer he becomes available, moving towards summer, I think clubs will look at him.
Well, it'd be easy for people to look and say, "Oh, well, he did well at AFC Files, but they had loads of money there." But he did a job really quickly there, actually, in getting them up the leagues and getting them so close to the football league. So actually, you're right. He deserves more credit than he actually gets.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging summer for him, though, hasn't it? Because preparing to get back into League Two over the last 2 seasons for both the clubs that have come up via the National League playoffs, there's been such a quick turnaround. How difficult has that been for the manager?
It's been really tough, to be honest. I think Challinor's even said it himself. It's been tougher than what any of us could have envisaged. Obviously, when you win the playoff final, everyone's on a high. You don't really think about the short turnaround, but once you soon come back down to earth, you realise that it's going to be a challenge. It was a positive consequence of the situation. You know, if we didn't win the promotion final, then we'd still be on the back foot, because I think we'd still have less time to prepare for the new National League campaign, and then undoubtedly lost more key players than what we did with getting promoted. It was catch-22. It was a catch-22 situation, but full credit to Challinor and the staff, because they've really steadied the ship, especially with losing key players like Reece Orch, Ryan Johnson, Lewis Cass. It was imperative for us to try and make the most of the momentum from promotion. Wasn't helped by losing those players and having a bit of a blip throughout pre-season, but after a positive start, all of that seems to be forgotten, and it seems to be like a level playing field now. It was an issue at the time, obviously, because I think there was a COVID issue just before we started pre-season, so we had short numbers in pre-season. Pre-season started a bit late because of the end of last season. But again, it goes back to the work that Challinor's done and being able to get us prepared, and to be honest, from the start we've made, you wouldn't really think that we've had less time to prepare, because we've pretty much, I wouldn't say we've started perfectly, but there's definitely signs there that we could probably we should have enough to keep our heads above water, that's for sure.
So you mentioned there losing key players, and the one that stood out to me was Reece Oates, obviously your top scorer last season, and you mentioned obviously Cass going to, I think it was at Port Vale he's gone to.
Yeah, I know,
Jamie Sterry, though, keeping hold of him, how big has that been? Because he's a player that was attracting a lot of attention from other clubs over the summer, but you've tied him down to a new deal.
Yeah, amazing really, isn't it? You look at a player like Jamie Sterry, who's got the ability to play in League One, maybe lower end Championship, but we lose the likes of Reece Orch. I mean, for Sterry, it's probably worked for us, because I think during last season his partner had given birth, and obviously they live local to us. I think they live in Newcastle way, so that's probably helped us out there, and to get him to sign a 2-year deal as well. That was really good business from the club. So yeah, to be honest, and he started the season like a house on fire as well. He's really important to how we play. Both fullbacks actually, both Sterry and Ferguson, they offer something a little bit different. They're both, especially with the system we play, allow us to play a lot higher. They allow us to stretch opposition defences with how wide they play as well. So they're both really important to us. But for Sterry, yeah, he's got the ability to play higher, and to get him tied down a 2-year deal was great news for us.
What are your hopes for this season then? Because a lot of people have actually tipped you guys to struggle. In fact, quite a few of the predictions have you guys to finish bottom. I should say, on our pre-season prediction, I think we all said sort of lower to mid-table sort of position for you guys.
Yeah.
How do you think you're getting on? What are your hopes?
I did see a lot of the predictions in pre-season, and seeing a lot of people having us tipped to go down. It wasn't a nice feeling, but especially with the way pre-season was going, there was excitement for the new season, but there was a little bit of doubt as well. If everyone's writing us off, then there must be a lot of quality in this league. But do you know what? I don't think it'd be too unambitious of myself to say that 22nd would be a great success, but I know that Challinor secretly wants to settle for that, and he'll want to push on as high as he can. But if you've got to put things in perspective a little bit, especially with losing those key players in the pre-season, I would just be very pleased with consolidation and building next season. But with Challinor in charge, the sky is the limit. We could really, it could go either way, to be honest, and especially with the start we've made. I don't want to belittle the likes of Crawley and Walsall, but they don't. For me, I think we had tougher games towards the end of last season playing the likes of Stockport and Notts County than we did against Walsall and Crawley.
what I'd say is Crawley are a very weird team at this level. When you look at the squad, they look like a good, solid League Two team.
Yeah.
But quite often they just do not turn up. And if they don't turn up, the 3 points are up for grabs. And it looks like you guys did exactly that and took the chance against them. And Walsall are a weird one because some people seem to think they'll do okay, but they've really struggled so far. So it's a strange sort of start to the season, I think it's fair to say. Let's talk about the ex-Blues in your squad and how they're getting on. I mean, first up, Gary Liddell's one that I think both sets of fans know very well and fairly well thought of, I think, at Carlisle, fair to say.
Yeah, obviously I couldn't speak highly enough of Gary Liddell myself, and I don't think many other Pillars fans would. He's a club legend in my eyes. Especially last season, he was a rock at the back in that sweeper role. He liked to keep on top of the other two centre-backs alongside of him with his experiences now. And do you know what? I know he's had 2 spells here. He's had 2 promotions and over 300 appearances, so you don't get much more of a club legend than that. Speaking of Lids as well, last season, this is how key he was to our promotion. I think he'd only lost 1 game when he'd played, and I think it was at Bromley away. So it shows, even at his age, how important he was. And he continues to be a key figure in the team, obviously, with his experience for the season too.
I think he's got pushing on over 600 appearances, hasn't he? First team appearances now in his career, which is quite a testament to how well he's doing, even at the age of 35 now. Couple of your summer your free summer signings, the other ones, Olamola, Cullen and Smith. Now, Olamola's half-season loan spell at Carlisle started really well, but he really tailed off towards the end and he just wasn't getting picked. Mark Cullen arrived injured and barely featured. And Martin Smith, blink you'll miss him. I think he played 2 games for us. So how are they doing?
Do you know what? For Cullen and Smith, you pretty much summed it for them so far. Obviously, Cullen came in. I know there's been question marks over his fitness. He played a game at Runcorn Linnets and he scored in it, actually. And then his second one against Spennymoor Town, I think he pulled up with a hamstring problem around 15 minutes in. Yeah. So I know there are question marks over his fitness, but I don't think there are too many question marks about what he offers when he is fit, because he's that fox in the box. He's got that know-how where to be and when to be in the right areas. And I think if we can get him fit, he could be a really important player for us. We lost a lot of goals last year with Armstrong and Oates not signing on for this season. So, as I say, if we can get him fit, get him in the right areas, because we put plenty of balls in the box, especially with Sterry and Ferguson. I think he could be a bit of a success, but he's obviously with Tyler Bury and Will Goodwin, their start of the season, I think he might struggle to get in the team while they're playing how they are. With Smith, I saw him over pre-season. To be honest, he's going to have a job on his hands trying to get into our midfield.
Well, squad padding, isn't it, really, I think?
I think he's just an option for squad depth. He played against Crewe in the League Cup, and I wasn't too impressed with him. But it's a difficult one for players when they're coming in for odd games, because you feel like it'd be quite difficult for them. They really need a run of games to build up that momentum, and you know, that I think that would be a boost for his confidence. But to be honest, I think he'll struggle getting into our midfield for the season. Yeah.
And Olamola, how's he doing?
Interesting signing. I know. Well, from what I had read, he had a successful loan period at Carlisle and obviously went back to Scunthorpe, but he suffered with a few injuries. So I'm sure with a run of games he could be a decent player for us. But he started the season. He started the first game and then got a knock before the Barrow game. So I think he's been in around the first team picture. I know he scored in a bounce game at Middlesbrough on Monday. I think we beat them 2-0, and he's an interesting one. I think with players, especially strikers, when they struggle with injuries and whatnot, I think what's important for them is they register the first goal sooner rather than later, because it can really build confidence. But I like what he offers. As I say though, even going with Cullen, I think he's got stiff competition trying to get in ahead of Will Goodwin and Tyler Bury at the moment though.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, Olamola, for us, because he came in and he did really well in that first 6 months. But then Chris Beach came in as manager to replace Presley. Yeah. And he just didn't. He struggled a bit after that, and Beach wasn't really interested in using him. Good technical player though, good at holding up the ball, good at laying it off.
Absolutely,
I think he could be a good player for you. And obviously, in terms of the memories of the ex-Pool players in our squad, Luis Alessandro had a decent spell with you guys, didn't he? And Gimme Toure as well a few years ago.
Yeah, both did. we'll start with Luis Alessandro. A bit unfortunate for him because that was a season where he got relegated, and he was one that I was really excited by when he signed. He's got a lot of experience, quite skillful, good on the ball. He can finish. He's quite a useful player. I did like Luis Alessandro, but what I think the issue was for him, we played Blackpool at home on Boxing Day, and he missed a penalty, and the manager at the time, Craig Hignett, absolutely hung him out to dry for missing the penalty, blamed the defeat on him, which it was typical of Craig Hignett, that. But yeah, Alessandro was really good for us. I don't think he would have, well, he obviously didn't drop into the National League with us, but yeah, I do keep an eye on Alessandro, even at Carlisle, because, as I say, I did like him, a good player. And do you know what, had we not been relegated, it'd been good to see him again in the season after, see how we could have developed under a new manager if that was the case.
And obviously Gimme, he's a bit of an enigma, isn't he, for us?
Yeah.
He's a player you're not quite sure what he's going to do next, are you?
No, he can be quite erratic, but he's an exciting player. He started the season, it was the 1920 season, he started like a house on fire. He signed from, I believe it was Sutton, controversially actually signing. He signed for Sutton from Dave Challinor's AFC file, but I think there was a case of some trickery from Jimmy's agent at the time, and I don't think Challinor was too impressed with that. But yeah, again, Jimmy was another one I liked. An exciting player, especially when he was on the ball. He had he had all the ability in the world when he had the ball. Some of the goals he scored for us and some of the tricks he did, he would send defenders to the shop, wouldn't he, with his little feints and whatnot. But yeah, I like Jimmy too. There was always going to be questions asked of him when Challinor came in because of how it ended at Fylde. But he can be a really controversial figure as well. I know he got there was an incident when we played Oxford in the FA Cup, and he got sent off after the game. I think there was some retrospective action taken against him. I have no idea. I was at the game. I had no idea that happened. But yeah, it was an interesting one. Obviously, when I'd like to have kept him, but I always knew that there'd be EFL clubs looking at him because he's exciting, and I know it's been frustrating for him at Carlisle, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's funny you mentioned red cards there, because he started the season so well, and then we played a game down at Exeter where he was stamped on by an Exeter player. It was a blatant stamp, and the referee missed it. And he got up and he basically headbutted the Exeter player. I mean, it wasn't a real headbutt. He sort of leaned in and the player made a meal of it. Yeah. But he got sent off in that game, and he never really got back into the starting 11 much after that. But, I mean, he's got all the ability and he can be so exciting. But I think it was tough for him last season because with all the restrictions on travel, with lockdowns and stuff like that, a lot of his family's based in France. So he essentially didn't get to see his family for a huge amount of the season, I think. So I think he found it tough second half. So that's the reason we decided to extend his deal and take out the option to extend it. Yeah. To give him
do you know who he reminds me of?
Yeah.
Do you remember Nathan Thomas? Nathan Thomas.
I was talking about him with a mate just before, because he's not got a club yet. He's left Hamilton last season. He's still not got a club. Thomas, again, for us, one of those players on his day, he was unplayable.
Absolutely.
So hit and miss with it. That was his problem.
Yeah.
Great little player. Before we get into the predictions, I want to ask you a quick one here about the rivalry of Carlisle, if you want to call it that. Because I mean, some of our younger fans in particular, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm quite a victim elder about this. I don't really see Hartlepool as a massive rival in that sense. I suspect Hartlepool fans, most of them, don't see Carlisle as a rival either. But our younger fans do try to build up a bit of a rivalry. Yeah. We've got Barrow now in our division, so it's interesting for us. We've actually got a Cumbrian team to play, although they don't think they're Cumbrian, and we don't really want them in Cumbria. What's your views on this rivalry then? Do you see us as rivals, or not? I guess you guys must quite miss playing against Darlington quite a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of truth from what you're saying now about the younger generation, because it builds excitement, doesn't it? If you've got a game in the season where you pinpoint and go, I can't wait for that, the atmosphere is obviously another thing that makes it a bit of a rivalry. And obviously with us, I think what coincides with that is the fact that we've played each other so many times at this level that it almost turns into one. So for me, it has become a bit of a rivalry, which I don't mind, to be honest, because as I say, it gives you something to look forward to. I wouldn't go as far as saying it was as big as a Poolsbury Darlington. But I'd much prefer the rivalry to be with Carlisle rather than Barrow, because they were trying to force one with us when we played them at Holker Street the other week.
Strange one, that one.
For me, Pools and Carlisle are two great football clubs at this level, well supported. We've had some great battles on the pitch. It's rarely been a dull. Apart from, I can remember when we played you at Brunton Park and you beat us 1-0 in 2016. But it's rarely been a dull game when we've played you.
No, there's always goals, isn't there? Generally when we
absolutely.
play.
I remember when you beat us 3-2 at the Vic and Billy Painter celebrated in Keith Kell, which probably wasn't the wisest idea in hindsight, but at the time it adds a bit of spice, doesn't it?
Yeah, there was an interesting one. I think Granger scored and Jabbo Beera got a couple of goals for that. Jabbo's a big hero of ours, Jabbo. So
he scores so many times. I think he's won. I think if I look at the stats, I think he's probably scored against us the most throughout his whole career.
He used to do it against Carlisle all the time. It was great when we signed him. Like, great, you can't score against us, but then he was way better for us than we expected in the end, really. But there you go. Actually, before I do the predictions, something else I forgot to ask you. Have you got any memories of Chris Beach as a player for Hartlepool?
I don't know. I was born. I think I was born in the year that he left us to sign for Huddersfield.
There you go. So it's a bit young for that one. I vaguely remember him playing against Carlisle, which is giving away my age there.
I think he's done really well at Carlisle, and especially the start he made. I know you had that big issue with COVID at the time, which didn't help. And I know there's been question marks of him, obviously with the second half of the season and the form and whatnot, but. He's actually one who I wouldn't mind managing Pools one day, obviously having the connection with the club. But I'm really keen to see how he gets on this season because, as I say, had it not been for COVID last year, I think you would have definitely been in the top 7.
Yeah, it's still a sore point for us. I think it's fair to say. Yeah. Go on then, John. Let's have your prediction for tomorrow. The weekend even.
Can I be really boring and sit on the fence and say 2-2? I think 2-2 because there's always lots of goals in it, especially at the Vic. Something's got to give. I believe in the law of averages, though, and obviously what's pushing me away from the draw now is the fact that you've not won or lost yet, have you?
No. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one to call, but I'll sit on the fence and I'll say 2-2, and I think goals to Alessandra, Little and Olamola. How about that?
Yeah, that's exactly what will happen. You just know. There you go. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us, John. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, thanks, Jordan, for taking the time to speak to us. And hopefully you're enjoying your time back in the Football League. Hopefully not too much this weekend, though. Right, let's look ahead to the game now then, Dan. So first trip to Hartlepool in 5 seasons, is it? After their time in the National League. A little bit longer than we had down there, I think it's fair to say. So this weekend, the referee for the game is Andy Woolmer. Vastly experienced referee, because most of the refs we had this season, haven't they? They're about second or third season as the EFL ref. This is his 18th season in the EFL as an official.
It's pretty good going, isn't it?
It's pretty good, yeah. And he generally takes charge of Championship games and the occasional League One game, so quite rare that he drops down to a League Two level, which maybe says the EFL are looking at this sort of game and thinking bigger way following potential for a bit of bother and a bit of a few tackles going in. So he sent these down to our level. Last season he took charge of 31 games, handing out 93 yellows, but just 1 red card. That's quite impressive as well, actually. Yeah. But funny enough, actually, I look back at his record, and I think in his last season as a National League referee, he refereed, I think, 16 games at that level and handed out 11 red cards. So he's clearly mellowed in his old age, hasn't he?
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. He hasn't refereed United games since the 2017-18 season, where he took charge of our 1-1 draw at Gillingham in the FA Cup first round tie. I think Danny Granger scored a penalty in that game. Did we win the replay of that one? I can't remember.
I think we did, yeah.
Possibly did, yeah. I don't know. I can't even remember who we got in the third round in that season, but I don't think it was anyone good. But there you go. Head-to-head record. We played Pools 104 times in our history. I don't think we played anyone else more. Rochdale maybe at a push. Possibly
they're definitely up there for...
They'll be up there. I think Darlington were quite high up there as well at one point. So, and the fact that I think Hartlepool have never played outside the 3rd and 4th tiers, have they? They've never played higher than that. So, it would make sense that we probably played them the most. We've won 50 times. There's been 18 draws, and Hartlepool have won 36 times. So, one of those rare occasions where we're comprehensively on top in the head-to-heads so far.
We played, just to cut in, we played Sheffield in the 3rd round at home.
Correct, I remember that now. Yes, because Sam Cosgrove had a great game, didn't he?
Yeah,
I seem to remember. Yeah,
and then got transferred 2 weeks later.
exactly that. Classic clash. There's plenty of games that could have gone for here, Dan, isn't there? They could have gone for the 3-2 game where Jabbo and Danny scored, and Billy Painter did his thing in front of Keith Curl. I could have gone for the 5-1 win on Boxing Day in 1994. Obviously, we played the next day against Bury, didn't we? Incredibly, back then. But no, Dan, I've gone back 93 years. Yes, I've gone back to United's first season in the Football League. And we're going to look at the second ever home fixture in the Football League, this one. Pools with the visitors to Brunton Park, and the 7,346 fans who crammed into the ramshackle stands couldn't quite have expected what was to come, could they, Dan? I think it's fair to say.
No, definitely not.
No. I found an old match report from Athletic News, so it's not The Athletic, but it's an old, on the British newspaper archive. And that back in the day, they stated that despite Pools losing their player Spry early in the game, they were simply no match for the speedy, weighty and skilled Carlisle side. Weighty's a weird description, isn't it? I'm guessing just big physical lads is what they were saying, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
There you go. United racing to a first half 5-0 lead. Hutchinson opened the scoring after 9 minutes, with Agar grabbing a second on the quarter-hour mark. By the 30-minute mark, Jimmy McConnell grabbed the third goal before both he and Hutchinson scored again before the break, with United having another goal disallowed. So it should have been 6-0, potentially, at half-time in this game. Robinson grabbed a long-range 6th goal for United in the second half before Ward missed a penalty, but then scored a 7th before McConnell secured his hat-trick and United's 8th to complete the rout. I mean, it could have been 10-0 potentially this game.
Yeah.
This was our third game in the Football League. Quite incredible, that second home game. The final whistle ended a miserable afternoon for the visitors as the Blues picked up what remains their record league victory, only equalled on Christmas Day 1952 against Scunthorpe United. In a Division 3 North that featured long-departed clubs including Ashington, Nelson, New Brighton, Southport and South Shields, the Blues finished an impressive 8th place in their first Football League campaign, but it wouldn't be until 34 years later that United would actually secure their first ever promotion. So there you go, Dan. We haven't got YouTube highlights of this one, unfortunately. But
no, shame.
Real shame that. But it's quite incredible. You look back at some of the teams that were involved back then, isn't it, really? It's like basically a who's who of the sort of North East non-league teams, and Merseyside as well, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And there you go. Play for both, Dan. So this is your bit. So we've got a long list to get through in a second. So go on, Dan. Tell me who you're picking.
I've picked a player who not only did he play for both teams, he played for both teams twice. He was born in Newcastle upon Tyne in January '63.
Can I guess?
I think it'll be easy to guess. Go on.
Is it Paul Baker?
It is David Paul Baker.
Yeah.
Yeah. He of the floppy sort of indie side parting hair.
Yeah, he had sort of like curtains, didn't he, by the time he came back the second time? Yeah.
A product of the famous Wallsend Boys Club. Progressed to Bishop Auckland before Southampton bought him for £4,000 in the summer of '84.
Big money.
But he didn't really break in and settle down there. And he came to Carlisle on a free transfer in the summer of '85. And he scored 70. He played 71 games in the league, scored 11 goals, and did quite well. And then he moved to Hartlepool on a free transfer. And he was at Hartlepool for a good 5 years and nearly 200 league games, 67 goals. You know, he was really, really good. And he eventually played up front with Joe Allen at the time. They were quite a good partnership, Baker and Allen.
Not on looker, was he, Joe Allen? I think it's fair to say.
No. And no one will ever forget Joe Allen's white boots on Boxing Day at Brunton Park once.
Yeah.
But Baker then moved to Motherwell for £77,500 in '92. But he didn't really settle there, and he moved on to Gillingham in January '93.
Extremely fat, isn't it? Motherwell to Gillingham.
But he did quite well there. Again, he's 16 goals, 60-odd games before he moved to York for only £15,000, October '94. But he was settled at York, scored 18 in 48, and then he went on his travels again, off to Torquay, as you do, for 25 grand. He's had quite a few transfer fees, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But whilst he settled on the playing side, he wanted to come back north, so he went to where's it going to?
Scunthorpe.
Yes. He was going to go to Rochdale, but they couldn't meet his demands, so he went to Scunthorpe scored 8 in 30, and sorry, that was at Torquay, and then Scunthorpe 9 in 21 before he winded up back at Hartlepool as a player coach.
Underneath Mick Tate, wasn't he? Who was his manager there?
Yes, and he scored 10 in 38, and he actually, in summer 98, he declined an offer to become Torquay's player manager. And once sort of Mick Tate went, his time was starting to come to an end, but he obviously got released in 99. And he was, funnily enough, he nearly joined newly relegated Scarborough. I wonder who relegated them. But no, he came back to Carlisle and he made another 17 appearances, scored a couple of goals. And I mean, at this time, he was 36, 37 year old, you know. But he drifted into the North East non-league scene, little spells at Bedlington, Durham and Blythe, where he became manager of Blythe for a couple of years. He was manager at Newcastle Benfield for a couple of years, little spell at Newcastle Blue Star. And then he went into scouting, Glen Roder's Norwich City.
Yeah, he does a lot of media work, actually, because when I was working at the club, he used to do stuff for the Press Association. So back in the day, they have someone on the phone, basically, telling them the stats of what's happening and who's taking shots and things like that and stuff. And I've sat next to him a few times. Really, really nice bloke, I have to say, actually. And he offered actually to do an interview with me, actually, at some point when it was after I'd left the club. So I'll have to try and drop a message to him because I think he's on a few things like LinkedIn or something like that. So I'll drop him a message and see if we can get him on, because interesting playing career, I think it's fair to say. And it should be noted, that time actually when he was back at United, he was player coach, wasn't he, in that second spell? At times he was de facto manager, wasn't he? Because Martin Wilkinson wasn't really in charge, I think it's fair to say. So,
the good old days.
Yeah, again, Neil Cooper was a bit of an unusual character as well, wasn't he? So I think he did as well as he could, and I think he was quite a useful figure, wasn't he, in guiding Scott Derby, I think, wasn't he, in that season particularly. So Paul Bacon, an interesting name there from the past time. Can you remember his first spell when he was playing, or a little bit before you remember?
Very, very faintly.
Yeah, because it would have been round about the time you started going, wasn't it?
The full list of players who've played for both is massive.
It's massive, as you'd expect. I mean, only really sort of Darlington and maybe, I don't know, maybe some of the sort of Lancashire clubs possibly would have more, but there you go. So here we go. Billy Adams, now he was in, I think, the 30s possibly, so he's one from a long time ago. One of the current playing squad, Lulis Alessandra, he had a spell there, didn't he? And quite a good spell, actually. I think he was at 40 games, 9 goals, something like that. Yeah, I think he's quite well thought of from his time there. A player who's very well thought of by both sets of fans, Paul Arneson, enjoying himself out in Australia these days, isn't he? Yeah. David Atkins had a load spell at Hartlepool, but he never played a game for them from Middlesbrough. Yeah. Obviously, he played for us quite a bit. I think a player who wasn't used particularly well by Curl, I don't think, but that's just my opinion. Paul Baker, as you previously mentioned. John Bass, there's a name from the past as well. Peter Beardsley, of course, finished his career, didn't he, with Hartlepool. Here's someone who's not played for United, but he's managed United. In fact, he's currently managing United. Chris Beach. He had a very successful spell there, did he, at Hartlepool? 3 or 4 seasons. I think he averaged like 1 in 4 from midfield in terms of goals, which is pretty good going. Richie Bennett, once again, mentioned him for the second time in a few weeks. Mick Buckley, do you remember him, Dan? I think he would have been just about the start of your following time. 80s
name-wise, yeah, but not.
No, yeah. Nathan Buddle began his career at Hartlepool. Didn't really play for them, though. Martin Burley, there's a name going back. You might vaguely remember him. I think he was 80s as well. Kagi had a spell as a player coach there just after he left United, but never played a game, I don't think.
He did re-register in case, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think he was possibly on the bench a couple of times, wasn't
he? Yeah. Adam Campbell, he's had a spell at Hartlepool. Kevin Carr, Peter Carr, John Cullen, we mentioned him recently. Mark Cullen is obviously there now. Andy Dibble. Yeah. Have gloves, will travel. That was
the season of 50 keepers.
Indeed. Kevin Dixon, player from the 80s. I don't remember him Dan, I don't know if you remember him. I think, again, he's one probably right at the start of your time
Yeah.
the club. Darryl Duffy, I think he had quite a decent spell at Hartlepool, didn't he? Compared against his spell with us. Stuart Elliott, again, a man who's played for about a million different clubs there. Wayne Entwistle. He had a spell at Hartlepool.
I can remember Wayne Entwistle.
Someone who didn't have a particularly great time with us, but had a very good time at Hartlepool, I seem to remember. Chris Freestone.
Yeah.
Joe Fryer, he had a short loan spell with Pools as well. Here's a blast from the past, Dan. Riccardo Gabbiadini.
Carry on.
The lesser of the Gabbiadini brothers, unfortunately, played for us. One of our greatest ever players, Bill Green. I think he started at Hartlepool, actually. Lewis Guy had a spell there. Paul Haig. One of my favourite players of all time, just for the cult status, really, of him. Stephen Halliday.
Yeah.
A player who should really have played at a lot higher level than he did, shouldn't he? Kevin Henderson, quite fondly remembered. He had a short spell with us, but did a good job while he was here. Evan Horwood, Jason Kennedy, Gary Liddell, Joe Livingston, Kenny Lowe. He had a bit of a spell at Hartlepool, I think. Gary McDonald, Joe Mantle, Aidan McCaffrey, John McCarthy. We're going through some names now, aren't we? David McCreary, David McKellar, who quite fondly remembered, isn't he, for his time at the club. Rab McKinnon, famously scored a brilliant goal against Hartlepool, didn't he, for us, in the Auto Windscreen Shield, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was a volley from about 35 yards into the top corner, something like that.
It's about all he did.
It literally was. I mean, he was a big lad, wasn't he, by the time he signed for us?
Yeah.
But I think he's very well thought of at Hartlepool, wasn't he? And in fact, when he was at Hartlepool, he had a loan spell at Man United. It's bizarre to think that would even happen now, isn't it, really? But there you go. Liam McSweeney, Paul Murray, Les Murty, Liam Noble, of course, had a spell at Pools as well. One of their current players, Olafalo Olamola. Late 90s loanee, Anthony Ormerod. One of your favourites, Dan, next, Billy Painter. Definitely one of your favourites next, Dan, Mally Poskett.
No, it's Super Mally Poskett.
Super Mally Poskett, I do apologise.
Yeah.
Another travelling goalkeeper here, Mark Prudo.
Yeah.
Michael Rains. Paul Robinson, I think he had a loan spell when Roddy was in charge, seem to remember.
Was he from Newcastle?
He was at Wimbledon by the time we signed him on loan. But I think he might have come on for Alan Shearer in his debut or something like that in Newcastle. Something like that, I seem to remember. One of my favourites, Matty Robson, Alan Shoulder, Barry Siddle, we mentioned obviously the other week, didn't we? Connor Simpson, Jeff Smith, Martin Smith, Anthony Sweeney, Mick Tate, we mentioned just before. Nathan Thomas, he's still not getting himself another club, has he? He's still looking for another club, which is unusual. Gibby Toure had a decent spell at Hartlepool. One of our one-game wonders, Steve Tupling, Eric Welsh, Harry Worley, and finally Charlie Wyke. There you go. That's the full list, Dan.
That's some list, isn't it?
It really is. And to be honest, I reckon I've probably missed a few of that as well because it's just impossible to try and track them all down as you go along. So there you go. Well, let's talk about Hartlepool United, the current team now then, Dan. So obviously over the summer they returned to the EFL via the National League playoffs after 4 seasons as a non-league side. It doesn't seem like it'd been that long, does it really? Because I can remember playing them under Curl. So it seems weird that they've been down there for that long. And as has been the case in recent seasons, there's a very quick turnaround from winning the National League playoffs to the start of the EFL season. I think that might start to work itself out a bit better, won't it? I think this summer, it'll be back to normal, won't it? But the last 2 seasons has been a bit of a nightmare for whichever clubs come up through the playoffs, isn't it, really, in terms of getting the squad prepared for the current season?
Yeah, it's been obviously victims of circumstance. Yeah. You know, it can't be helped, and they probably haven't even had a holiday, some of these lads. But you know, I'm sure they're not complaining because it's they're back in the league. So
indeed they are, and the man responsible for that is the manager, Dave Challinor. Name might be familiar to some older fans who probably remember him when he was at Tranmere Rovers, and he had the Guinness World Record for the longest throw-in, didn't he? Now, everyone thinks, obviously, Rory Delap's throw-in must be longer, but I actually went back and watched some YouTube clips.
Challinor's huge.
Challinor could literally put it on beyond the far post. That's how long he could throw it.
Challinor was more of an arcing throw, whereas Delap was like a cross.
Yeah.
So Delap sort of... improved upon what Challinor was doing,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Not as much distance, but the way his technique was the key thing as much as anything, wasn't it? So yeah, he was probably better known for that, but he's built up a really good reputation as a non-league manager, hasn't he? He started out at Colwyn Bay in North Wales. Now, Colwyn Bay actually play they did in the English setup, didn't they? I don't know if they've moved to Wales now, possibly. I'm not 100% on that one. But then he moved to Lancashire to take charge of AFC Fylde for 8. I didn't realise it was 8 seasons he was in charge.
Yeah.
And I know they've had money thrown at them, but still, he managed to get them 3 promotions at that time. He got them within 90 minutes of the Football League. Only to lose.
Stato interruption.
Yeah.
Colwyn Bay are currently in the Cymru North, the second tier of the Welsh Pyramid.
Well, I had a feeling they'd moved back over there, hadn't they? Because they were definitely in the English system, I'm sure, about 4 or 5 seasons ago.
1920, they went back over.
Probably just the travelling and stuff like that, isn't it? I think they'd want to do. So yeah, he's done a brilliant job at AFC Fylde, 90 minutes away from the Football League, only to get beat 3-0 by even bigger money bags, Salford City, in the final a few years ago. But they did actually win the FA Trophy final that summer. They beat champions Leyton Orient 1-0 at Wembley to get their first ever Football League, FA Trophy winner, I do believe. He's done a really impressive job turning around a listing Hartlepool side, though, hasn't he, Dan, when you look at it? Because I look back, and until last season, I think their best place finish in the National League was 12th place, possibly. And, you know, a lot of teams go down and find it difficult, but Hartlepool found it particularly difficult. In fact, I got it up here. First season down in the National League, they finished 15th. Second season, 16th. He came in November 2019. In that season, they finished 12th. Last season, they finished 4th. And they didn't have a massive budget, did they? Compared against the likes of Stockport and even, you know, obviously Wrexham's money sort of more now.
Chesterfield and all them.
Chesterfield, Notts County, people like that. To actually get them up, they didn't expect to go up, did they? I think that's one of the things that stood out. They apparently were preparing their squad for another go in the National League this season. And were sort of a bit surprised that they'd actually managed to do it for the playoffs. Because obviously, playoffs in the National League, there's 6 teams in it, isn't there? So it's a bit more wide open. And they managed to beat Stockport, I think, in the semi-final, wasn't it? And then obviously Torquay, who'd been so unlucky not to get promoted automatically in the playoff final. It's been a tough summer for them, hasn't it? Because they've lost a few key players.
Yeah, and obviously, as we've already mentioned, the sort of turnaround time, you know what I mean, with the sort of unpredictability of the National League playoffs, you know, he was probably planning twice, you know, once for the conference season and once in case we do go up. So, you know, it's a hard time to be not a hard time to be a manager, but hard working and challenging, I think, would be fair. Yeah,
I
but
think
no, but I mean, if anyone can, Challinor probably can, because he's like we've just said, he's not a bad manager, is he?
No, he's done a decent job, and I think a lot of people looked at his time as manager of Fylde and said, "Oh, well, it's all right doing it there because you got big money behind you, haven't you? So you know it's an easy job." But actually, when you look at the job he's done at Hartlepool with a much lower budget, full credit to the man. He's done a really good job there. Star man, there's a few players I could have picked up for this, but I've gone for Jamie Sterry. He's a player I think you've mentioned a few times, Dan. I've been quite impressed by. Because I know you watch a little bit of National League football, don't you, on the BT Sport channels? Yeah,
sometimes, He plays right wing back a lot, and you know, he signed a new deal. There was interest in him. If he carries on this season, I don't think he'll be there for that long. But
no,
you know, but they've got quite a good spread of players, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're looking at. I mean, experience is going to be key for them, obviously, in terms of establishing themselves this season and. No one better in that sense than Gary Liddell, is there? Who's got must be pushing on 700 appearances as a professional now. So he playing at the heart of defence will be a massive play for them. They also signed Jake Lawler, didn't they? Who did really well at Harrogate last season. Actually, I was quite surprised that he left them. So he's gone to partner him in defence there. Nicky Featherstone in midfield's got bags of experience as well, hasn't he? I think he was at Hull City a few years ago. But probably one of the more exciting players in attack, and he started the season really well, is Gavin Houlihan, or Houlihan, I think you pronounce it. Yeah, he's definitely going to be one to watch this season as well, isn't he? I think it's fair to say.
I think with sort of that bit of experience, you can't see them getting hammered much, can you?
No, I mean, I'm surprised because a lot of the pre-season previews were predicting that they were going to finish bottom and stuff like that. And I thought, no, I think people are underrating actually how good a manager Challinor is, and actually how solid the squad actually does look. There's plenty of decent, experienced players in there. I mean, Cullen up front. I know he's not going to play that many games because he's always injured, but he adds a little bit more up there. I think if they can get a decent way of playing their style, Olamola is one who could potentially be a really good player for them.
Yeah.
I think looking at the team, I think that they'll do all right. I don't think they're going to be in any danger of going down. Yeah, solid enough, I think it's fair to say. The start of the season, I think they've been quite fortunate. The fixtures they've had have been probably quite kind to them, haven't they? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the game against Barrow was just one of them classic ding-dong matches, wasn't it? You know, I think from seeing the highlights of that game, either team could have won that game.
Yeah, I think you're going to find that Barrow this season. A lot of games that are going to be weird scorelines because of the conditions.
Apart from when we go and put them in their place.
Steady on, Don. Steady on. That's going to blow back in our face come that time next April or whenever it is we play them.
We'll just wear the same kit as Aston Villa.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they opened up the season against Crawley Town, and Crawley are just a weird team, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
They just, when they fancy it, they seem to be quite decent, but when they don't, they're usually quite a comfortable side to play. As you mentioned, they lost against Hartlepool in the first away game.
Barrow.
Sorry, lost against Barrow in the first away game. And then they played Walsall, who were early season strugglers, and got a 2-0 win there. I think they were supposed to play Harrogate in one of those games as well, possibly, weren't they? I think that was one of the... Or was it Newport, maybe? One of those games that was called.
Yeah.
Possibly, early on in the season. So they've only played 3 games compared to the 4 that we've played. And they're ahead of us on goal difference so far, aren't they? So pretty tight at the top so far, though, isn't it? But there you go. It's a weird one, Hartlepool as a away trip, isn't it? Because neither of us are going to the game this weekend. Mike is, so we'll get his thoughts on the game next week. But I don't know. I don't look forward to it as much as some of our younger fans do. Maybe I'm a bit old and jaded about it in that sense. But
it's definitely a younger part of the fan base who see it as a derby game. To me, when I was these people's age, we were playing Preston, Wigan, and Burnley every other month, you know, and they were proper games.
Even games against Darlington as well.
Well, I was just about to say, I mean, I always preferred going to Darlington than Hartlepool. It just they seem more of a rival. I mean, Hartlepool and Darlington hate each other. That'll never ever go.
Yeah.
But I always preferred going to Darlington than Hartlepool. But it's it's still a good day out, and we've sold our tickets out, and there's still plenty of people looking. So we could probably have sold a few more. So
yeah, it's one of those ones. I mean, Victoria Park's not changed in the what. Trying to think when I first went, I would have probably first gone round about 2000, 2001, and it's not changed a single bit in that time. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because I think the council own the ground, and there's always been a bit of a dispute over renovating it and doing works to it, and the club have been reluctant to do anything unless they actually own the ground. So I think there's something might have been resolved to do with that in recent years, possibly. I'll have to have a look at that one. But yeah, it's one of those grounds. I mean, it's not the greatest away end in the world either, is it really? Comfort-wise, cramped in seats, quite a low down, not really very raised view. So yeah, I hope everyone enjoys the game at least anyway. I sound like a proper Victor Meldrew miserable get I talk about, but yeah, it's one of those ones. I'm looking forward to Sutton next month as my first weekend away trip of the season. Let's talk about United then, Dan. I think we're in agreement here. It's time to change things up front.
Yeah, I mean, it'll never happen, but I'd be quite happy to go 4-4-2 for this game and play Dickinson and Toure on the wings, because Toure will want to play well against them.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I would play Clough behind Abrahams.
Who would you be midfield to though if you did that?
Probably do.
It's a tough one, isn't it? This is where the tough decision is, because Guy's starting whatever. He's captain. He's our best player.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be dropped. Riley started the season brilliantly, having been initially dropped for the first game and then coming in when Clough got injured in the warm-up.
And it's exactly the sort of game where you want Mellish to play, isn't it?
Mellish would be, I mean, probably the sort of game he'll get sent off in, But you know, it's one of those. Although he's not been sent off for us yet, so it's probably been a bit harsh that. But again, we've seen Mellish this season. When he comes off in games, we struggle a bit. So it's a tough decision. You do wonder, maybe even if you do that 4-4-2, do you maybe stick Riley on one of the wings possibly?
Or you could start Riley, then bring on Mellish with an hour gone, which you know would be their. They'd be like, "Oh Christ, what's this?"
Exactly that. Yeah,
this is all we need for the last 20 minutes or whatever.
Definitely. But it's a tough decision to make, isn't it? Because like you said, for me, I probably would drop Alessandro whatever happens. I think he needs a bit of a break, and I think we maybe need to have a look at something different. I think you obviously want to try and get Clough into the team now because you want to get him starting games. Yeah. So then the question is, do you stick with Dickinson as well, or do you maybe bring Toure in, like you said, against his old club because you want to impress? It's a tough one. It is a tough one, and I think general agreement is we probably don't change things at the back. I think that's fine at the moment. Although, I mean, it's a point someone's raised to me. Jack Armer's getting done quite a lot on the inside in terms of the balls played inside him. So it's something he needs to work on, or you maybe have to start looking at getting in some backup for him to give quite a bit of pressure on him, possibly. Don't think we need backup for Tanner. I think he's been brilliant so far this season. I think he's done really well. Yeah, it's a tough one to judge, isn't it, that one?
Yeah.
Do you bring Brad Young in, or do you stick with him off the bench for now?
Off the bench for now, I think. Even though Abrahams has scored a penalty, a goal, you know, he's scored 2 and 4 at the end of the day, so he deserves his start still.
Definitely. Okay then, Dan, let's have your prediction.
Oh, I really don't know with this one. I'm going to go for a Blood and Thunder 2-2 draw.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go for Rod McDonald header.
Oh.
And Zach Clough to break his duck for the season.
Well, there you go. Okay, let's have Mike's predictions. He sent me these. I haven't listened to them yet, so let's see what he's got to say.
I am going to go for a 2-1 win to the Blues with a John Mellish brace in front of his extended Northeast family, who will no doubt be in the stands cheering him on.
Very, very precise there, isn't he? He's saying who's going to be attending the game as well.
Yeah, his auntie and his great uncle. And
yeah, everybody wants to be there. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win as well. But no, I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. 3-1 win. Mellish will score 1. Clough will get 1, and I'm going to go for George Tanner to score 1 as well, because he's had a few sighters so far this season. I think he fancies himself to get a goal early on. He's the kind of player who likes scoring in front of like a good away following. I think he'll enjoy it. So there you go. So that's the predictions for this week. What I'll do is before the next episode, I'll put together a little table of how we've done so far. Not very well, I think, is the answer, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, up next, the X-Files. Dan, not a huge amount to cover this week.
No, not a load. Tim Krul scored in the Norwich Man City game. Unfortunately, didn't know much about it, and it was an own goal. I did watch it on Match of the Day, and he didn't really have much choice. Zanzala scored for Barrow. He then also against Villa started smashing the ground up with a wayward shot.
Which is what Mr. Cooper wants him to spend money on, so he's not helping things, is he?
Cole Stockton just keeps scoring for fun.
He's got 2 last week, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think they've dipped off a little bit in their form now, though, haven't they? I think they had a good start. They've dipped off.
A certain Kedwin Scott scored 2 for Gateshead in the first game of the season. George Waring scored twice for Chester.
Yeah, there's a blast.
Jerry Yates got a penalty for Blackpool. Andy Cook scored for Bradford again. And a one-game wonder with an own goal, Sean McGinty up in Scotland. Couple of transfers, both to National League teams. Dean Furman, having turned down Oldham, has now and been on trial at Wrexham, has now signed for Altrincham, so they must be offering decent tatey. And Marcus Dewhurst has gone on loan to Solihull Moors.
Oh. He made his debut against Wrexham, didn't he, the weekend? Obviously, who Aaron Hayden's playing for now. Speaking of Wrexham, obviously, there's been rumours linking Callum Guy with a move there. I think
the more historical from the summer when they were just asking everyone who's going to sell and what. And
there's been a few whispers that they possibly asked about him at the same time as Hayden and were told to sod off, basically.
Yeah.
One or the other. So there you go. And finally, a little bit of a bother for one of our ex-managers. Not for him specifically, but for his club. I put in here.
Well, I predicted they would struggle.
Yeah. Oldham Athletic, obviously, we're talking about here. And, Keith Curl. Not so much his fault, I don't think, really, at the moment. I know you'd probably disagree there, Dan, but off the field, they just look an absolute mess at the moment, don't they? Their game against Accrington in the League Cup the other night was delayed for about 15 minutes because fans threw tennis balls on the pitch. I mean, that's an old one, isn't it? Because I think that was it the Hull City fans did that back in the 90s, didn't they? When David Lloyd was their owner, I think, a game against Bolton or something like that. So yeah, lots of tennis balls thrown on the pitch. 2 pitch invasions in the last 2 games that delayed the games as well.
I bet they wish you could get points for the League Cup because they've beat Tranmere and Accrington now, haven't they?
What is it? They're struggling in the league. It's a crazy one. Yeah, they just look a bit of a mess, don't they? And I think our predictions for them to struggle this season are looking like smart ones so far. As is, I have to say, my prediction for Forest Green to win the division, as it looks at the moment. Like they're going to be the team to beat, doesn't it? They're absolutely flying under Rob Edwards, and it shows the merit of just keeping your squad together as much as anything and investing wisely in good young players, doesn't it? So fair play to them. That's it for this week then, Dan. Thanks once again for joining me. Thanks once again to the London branch for sponsoring the second half of the show. Just a reminder that you can subscribe to the podcast on all good podcast apps, whether that's Apple, Google, Spotify, Acast, any podcast app like that. If we're not on a podcast app, when you search for Brunton Bugle, let us know and we'll try and get us put onto the app. As well as that, if you can give us a review wherever you get your podcast, that'd be fantastic. A 5-star one would be lovely. You can follow us on social media at Brunton Bugle. We're on Facebook as well, on Brunton Bugle, just search for that. We're also posting on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group, and obviously on the Cumbrians.net message board, and you can email us bruntonbugle@gmail.com. And Dan, we've got a new country on the map. I checked before. Croatia. Yeah.
Holiday. That's a holiday person.
It definitely is, isn't it, basically? Hey, we've got a listening in Croatia. I'm having it every day of the week.
Whereabouts did it say?
I don't know. I didn't have a look, so I'll have to check that out. So, but there you go. So there you go. In terms of upcoming episodes, we've actually got one out, haven't we, Dan?
Yeah, we finally got my 11 out yesterday.
Yeah, we had some good feedback on that so far. Everyone seems to be interested. Some interesting choices in there, Dan. That some older names that some fans won't know, actually, I think it's fair to say. So the younger fans, I should say. But yeah, they're really good episode, and we're going to get around to recording mine in the next week or two, I think, as well, just to get that one pinned down. There'll be some interesting names in mind, because I'm not going for best 11. I'm going for my favourite 11. And it's really proving bloody hard to pick it at the moment. Defence especially. I find defence an absolute nightmare to pick because there's so many players I'd love to have in there. But there you go. So obviously we'll have an episode out next week for the Salford game. And then we'll probably have another special.
There's nothing happening midweek.
No game midweek. We'll talk about that. There you go. Dan, a pleasure as always. Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.